Dobrý deň prajem.
Good afternoon to you all. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this, I think, very useful event. As you can see from my presentation, the result is quite obvious. It's expenses on the left and incomes on the right. It says Options of Consolidation is the title. So what will we choose? And in my presentation, I'd like to attempt to make additional remarks to those of my predecessors here. When we speak of whether or not the consolidation should be done on the side of income or expenses, we could use some economic studies to help us out. Studies which are used to make comparisons on economic efficiency, whether consolidation to be done on that or the other side. I personally am not one of the fans of that side of economy which is trying to add up the correct result, because I think the numbers are only simplifying the world to us, the economists, but they don't help us understand it better. This is the work of respected economists from Harvard, long-term studies, which I think do bring a relevant picture, and one such key is the work of Mr. Alesina and his co-authors, who have done a review of more than 40 years of consolidation efforts in countries under OECD. And based on that, he came to the conclusion that the less negative impact on growth as the consolidation on the side of expenditures. So increasing taxes slows down more the economic growth, or its effect is more pro-recession. On the other hand, those countries who have focused the consolidation on the expenditure side, they were able to retain for a longer time the level of expenses compared to per GDP, or to decrease their public debt. So historic empirical data suggests that more focus and more attention should be placed on cutting expenses. Another view on the importance or significance of expenses cuts can be seen by a study of an important British think tank, Centre for Policy Studies, which recently had published a study, Small is Best. Based on their results, an econometric comparison of how countries conduct their business. Small is less than 40% per GDP expenses, and the big countries are beyond 40%. They've come out in 1965 to 2009. Countries who had increased expenses by 10% of GDP, income tax by 10% of GDP, it means 1.2% slowing down per capita of their economy. Now, I don't consider these numbers as mantra, but I say the standard econometric methods point towards the fact that the high tax burden does have negative impact, or there is a correlation of negative impact on the economic growth. The study was conducted very precisely indeed, and important there is also the argument that states with small government, small volume of public expenses did not have worse results in those qualitative parameters such as the life expectancy or education level. I think at the event organized by ASA Institute, an expert could bring two studies claiming the exact opposite. I don't think we need to base our argumentation on this, even though this cannot be completely overlooked. Which is important in the basket of expenditures, which has more weight, is the very simple fact that we know that there is wastage and there is always room for savings. It's just common sense. It doesn't require you to have any engineering education or economic university in Bratislava, nor any other important institutions. You just need your common sense. It'll tell you that, let me state a few examples, that it's supposed to be a circle, it's ellipsis, something is compressing it, Anyway, within the project of the price of a state is project of monitoring of wastage in the media, and we are monitoring those cases where obviously there has been inefficient expenditures of public conducted by public administration of public funds, and where in cases where through court cases and trials we had to pay damages and so on. Over 4 years of this project, this amount jumped up to 2 billion euros. So wastage and low quality and low efficiency is there, and it's something no one can disagree with, and it's something which provides ample space for savings. Additional step is unjustified transfers, such as already mentioned family bonuses, family benefits. Allow me to ask you 2 questions. What do you think is the degree of education of average visitor of state theater? What would you guess? Is there someone who thinks it's high school level? Or would you say it's rather university level, usually? Okay, now second question. What's the share of revenues in a theater? So that's revenue from the box office in theater on overall economy. It's 10. Very few realize that the unjustified transfers to individuals is not only benefits. These are many services which draw away or draw out, are drawn by higher income groups. We can call them ruling class or whatever you want. Is a group of people who have a good overview of situation. So we could name several examples of services which are provided without person actually having a feeling of receiving a benefit. This goes with the railroad, it goes with the state bonus to building savings. Many transfers represent room for savings in the volume of 300 to 500, almost a billion euros, really, which would lead to decrease net income of some groups of citizens. On the other hand, however, such savings would prevent increase of taxes. And we don't have to, we already heard about negative impact on increasing taxes. I'll get back to it a little later. So with these unjustified transfers, do not just look benefits, but also look at services provided by state administration. Of course, not to say that many of such services are provided by state agencies who these services themselves are either available on the market or are designated to commercial entities, whether it's a research institute within the agriculture ministry, for instance, or meteorological services. Very often there's a duplicity of such services, or we're funding offices which provide activities which could exist on a free market. And the last group is the inefficient performance of public administration. We know that the previous government was trying to save by making people redundant, decreasing operational cost. Very few will doubt that greater transparency in using electronic auctions had decreased procurement cost. But it was a 4% decrease of compared to 2010 for salaries for civil servants and for operation of the civil service as well. So in 2011 we have a deficit of 17 to 18% of tax and payroll tax income. I think 4% savings is well beyond that which a private sector would consider as appropriate reaction. As an explicit example, I usually like to use one example which we had in the wastage, where one civil servant, I'm not sure now which office she was from, it was a metrology and normalization. She fined a daily plus 7 days or weekly by stating the power of a car engine in horsepower instead of kilowatts. So we have people actually paid for doing this very serious work. Another example is that since 2010 there was one state organization abolished. It was the folk music and dance ensemble Jánosik. So there's still a huge room there available. There were no mergers, no nothing really happened. Now let's look at the other side, consolidation on the income side. I personally do not see any reason why there should be any such consolidation, because there are no economic grounds. The greater tax means greater wealth. That just doesn't work. It'd be rather more interesting to look at in what environment we wish to be increasing taxes, because this is what it says on the slide: high taxation. Many claim that there is a low taxation in Slovakia, which is not true. Work burden is the standard European 50%. Tax burden on work, on labor. Increasing that would mean limited income from taxation, and increase just reasons for creating new jobs and for black market job. Slovakia, for its wealth, has sufficiently high taxation already, even too high. All we need to mention is the number that, as opposed to the Western Europe, the average financial assets of a Slovak is 10 to 14 times lower than that of the Western European. So you need to tax the capital as well. The Slovaks have. This goes for real estate as well. If there's a low asset base, that also reflects itself into real estate price. So we cannot afford increasing taxes because they are high enough already. Now, another aspect concerning taxation is the simple question: what is the appropriate level of solidarity? It's simple to say, I need the rich people to pay more. This sentence has the magic of being able to be used forever, until 100% rate. You could always, pay more, without the proponent having to say how much is more and how much is appropriate. There is no good database available in Slovakia on income tax distribution of natural persons, because financial administration doesn't work as it should. Now, if we look at the social insurance company, looking at the salary basis for calculation of contributions, we talk about natural persons as employees. If we look at injury insurance, which also includes short-term employed and doesn't have the 3,000 euro ceiling, like other insurance company have, we come to another result, that it's 50-10. 50% of low-income employees pay 10% of income tax of natural persons, and the remaining 10 pay 50%. 10% of employees pay remaining 50% of tax. Now, it's a simple split. Is it too much or too little? The answer, of course, is given by the political conviction, political goals of the given administration. Each debate on the topic of solidarity shouldn't even begin, because it's a value-based definition. What I was trying to say about that is that, as mentioned already, high-income groups are not only those entrepreneurs. We should not be feeling any specific hatred against those people. These are the people who are actually attracting wealth and attracting prosperity to the country. We should respect them, in fact. It says, which taxes? One thing I'd like to stop by. We often ask the question, which taxes should we be increasing? I'm unable to answer the question because I don't feel to be authorized to say you can take from him and give to that guy. But interesting discussion is about indirect taxation and taxes. And I'd just like to shortly stop by indirect tax, because they say they are less damaging to economic growth. An interesting relation of indirect tax is the unemployment rate in Slovakia. High indirect tax are dangerous for people with low income performing work with low added value in service sector. If you increase GDP rate to a hotel, to the waiters and cleaning ladies with the minimum wage, it's a huge problem, because you take the money away from the hotel. To the service the person is selling, you are making the service more expensive. So increasing VAT in this regard has negative impact on jobs, and specifically low-income jobs. And we can all agree on that the unemployment rate is the key economic problem that we all should be tackling. OECD is proposing as a result that if to increase GDP, that income from that should be aimed at decreasing contributions of low-income groups, which is not done in Slovakia. This mathematics is missing in the current proposals, and even if only the proposals will somehow tied up or somehow specifically targeted, which are not, they are not. So we are getting to a situation where the inefficient, expensive, this wastage I mentioned, is going to be funded by increased taxes without seeing a high quality public administration. On the other hand, I wanted to stop by this abolishment of the family benefits. There is a de facto decrease of net income of high income groups. However, one needs to say, what are the alternatives? Either decrease expenses or increase taxes to fund the transfer. Besides the fact that there is money being transferred from one pocket to the other, we always lose something 10 to 15% on the administration thereof. On the other hand, I think that this view that higher income groups or middle income groups should not be receiving benefits, but they should be purchasing services instead. We should extend that notion. That could go to health sector, for instance. They say huge problem is for self-employed having low contributions, so that thus not even paying for their own healthcare and their pensions. We have other option too. We can say, fine, self-employed, let you make low contribution, but the price you pay is you will not be entitled to the minimum pension. Minimum pension from this regard is dangerous because it complicates the choice when the self-employed takes a decision. I want to take care of myself, and taking upon themselves the punishment, the price they pay. If they fail in their business, in their work, they will not receive that minimum pension from the government anymore. The same can go as a principle to healthcare. He who will not pay some amount of contributions, he will have to pay extra for the healthcare they require. This is a real option we could use. We're not using, and we pretend that we have to increase contributions to self-employed and to short-term employed. So we should really focus on the deal that instead of paying taxes, instead of indirect burdening of services, where the taxpayer does not feel as a customer, we should go instead in the direction of letting people purchase the services they require. Let the government provide that services, but once you pay for it, you bring requirement to quality into the system, because there is a relation between the service provided and the price thereof. So allow me to conclude my presentation by 3 key points. Form of consolidation that is focused on income or expenses is a political choice. It is no necessity. To identify it currently in Slovakia, 1.5 billion euros to be found. We have done that. Others have done it. And state civil servants, state paid people have done that. There is room for that available. If someone decides today to consolidate only through increasing incomes, it's a political choice. It's not an economic necessity, and it's not even a step towards more efficient economy in Slovakia. As it is written in a draft act on special taxes for companies in regulated industries, that taxes will increase efficiency, as they say. Now, consolidation in Slovakia without reform of public administration will only be serving as an excuse of inefficient economies, inefficient use or utilization of public funds. And thirdly, consolidation in the past really picked up, although of the low-hanging fruit, there was no real cut in transfers. That never happened. I think that is something which is a little bit a weak point of criticizing the current opposition, but the current opposition criticizing the current government. They cannot say, this is how we have done it, and this is what you are not doing now, because they have not done it themselves. Academia and other political circles or opposition could argue by saying these organizations need to be abolished and costs need to be cut.